Hi everybody, welcome to Red Horse Center for Collaborative Leadership series on horse and human collaboration. Today's episode is called Moving the Herd, and we're working on an activity we're calling pasture sending. And today's session has a little bit of a story and a little bit of a history to it. So last week in Rosetta Stone we talked about sending being sort of a hemisphere of the language, that it's different than come with me, and that it's also sort of this core place of learning language as well as establishing leadership. So today we're going to talk about how our role of leadership in the herd is earned. We're also going to talk about how working at liberty when the horse has ultimate choice of movement. Working at liberty often is excellent for the relationship and excellent for the language, and so that's what we're doing today. The story brings up some of our methods as well, and that we're going to work with Roja today. Roja is a mare who's probably 7 or 8 years old, somewhat of a adoption rescue situation, and we're not really sure of her training or background, but where she came from, she was a solo horse and in need of some care. So that said, when we got her here, we were just integrating her with the herd slowly and doing some of the basic stuff. And she moved really well, including in the round pen when we got there. And then when we did some line lunging, which we'll get to in another episode, she had a few tricks, but she was moving off quickly. And then she started sort of secretly playing chess and what seemed like accidental trips over the rope, where she would get the rope caught and need to stop and start again. We would need to stop and then start again. We started to realize was her strategizing to sort of circumvent the plans. So anyways, we were doing lots of different things, and we kind of lightened up there. And then 6 months later in the fall, when we came back to do some free lunging like we did in the last episode, we found ourselves at a bit of an impasse. Is that she stood her ground and said in so many different ways, ears pinned, butt facing us, pivoting, putting us out of our position, we realized that she was saying no to moving away from us. It was a bit of a head scratcher at first because she had moved off so sensitively and lightly when we first started working with her. Now we had a better relationship. We'd worked her through many things. We really, in those 6 months that I talked about, we kind of just shifted to the approach and engage portion and some leading, but it was really things like picking hooves, lifting hooves, and we worked through some of her, let's call them insecurities. She wasn't very comfortable at first lifting her hind feet and letting us near her undercarriage. She was a recent mother, and we just started to find these sensitivities in her, and we gave her space, and we worked on trust. So the progress we'd made there, the positive relationship that we believed we had established, was making it more confusing until we thought about, well, sending can be hard to receive if you didn't have a herd, if you didn't have a group. Now you're a member of this 8-horse herd with humans that participate in that herd language. Sending can be challenging or frightening to a horse that doesn't want to be sent from the group. At least that's one of the thought processes we were going through. We also always want to live up to our principles, which I should have said at the beginning, which is choice, learning from herd dynamics, respect and trust, mutual benefit for horse and human, a non-violent relationship, and of course always going towards softness. So I think the place that the principles and our methods get challenged is when we reach a refusal that is increasing in intensity and volume. I often talk about this language of leadership and movement, especially in the round pen, as we're playing chess. We're trying to earn their respect as being a good player so that they decide they want to be on our team rather than play against us. And if we can consistently earn that respect, then that becomes more established. But if a horse starts pinning their ears and starting feigning physical challenge, meaning she's swinging her butt in front of you, she's lifting a leg, she's making these strong statements, I want to find a way to move through that. But I don't want to do it with force. I don't want to do it with violence. I want to do it in her language, in the language of horse. But when our normal movements and our normal tools start to be unsuccessful, I think that's one of the trap doors where you can think, well, in order to make this 1,000-pound animal move, I'm going to have to get more serious. And that can lead to physical contact or threat of force that can feel more threatening and more punitive. Do this or else this consequence happens, instead of leading the way we want to towards softness and through choice. So that's what we're going to work on today. The methods we're sharing today are finding the third way and productive unpredictability. So it's interesting too that finding the third way is really a principle of nonviolence. So when we're finding ourselves at an impasse where we're not sure how to proceed, we're feeling stuck, we don't know how to get through, how to communicate what we want, how to earn respect as leader, if it feels stuck and it feels like it's leaning towards this is where people would get physical, that's a really great time to remind yourself, I have to find a way, I have to find another way, I have to find the third way. And so what we did here was I was a little bit stuck, and so I eased up. We did something else for the end of the last time we worked in the round pen. I worked on backing a few steps, which is still a form of sending, and we would get a couple of steps, release, get a couple. So the lesson didn't end with her refusal, but I stopped pressing on that particular ask. And so a couple weeks went by, and I thought, she moves with the herd nicely. We have this good relationship. She's just not comfortable being sent off alone. And I wonder if that has something to do with it. Oh, and I started thinking about how would I introduce another horse into this scenario to give her some comfort and the opportunity to be sent as a cue without that indicating aloneness or separation. And I thought about having two horses in the round pen. How would I do that? Is that enough space? I thought about the arena, and I was thinking about these, methods, these specific methods that we use in areas of work. And we also do a lot of work at Liberty in the pasture. And then it sort of dawned on us that we have these two pastures. The horses move between them. Let's go there and start with Roja, asking her for movement. And then whether she refuses or goes or doesn't go, we can add support by moving other herd members, and we can send the whole herd from one pasture to another, and that might loosen this up a little bit. And so that's where we are. We have done it successfully several times. By successfully, I say we start with Roja. If we get movement, then she's supported by the rest of the herd joining in. If we don't get movement or not in the direction we want, she gets support by the rest of the herd joining in. And we're following those other methods of starting with the subtlest cue with her specifically, and then also her being the start, then the herd being support of that cue. So we're also working on sort of a broad stroke ask, go that way. There's some points where they can turn left or right, and if they go up a different direction than we intended because they're in front of us, then that's not wrong. We just have to get up there and reshape. And we just have a general area that's our target to arrive at. So we're dealing with broad strokes, and we're progressing through from subtlest to supportive. And that ends up being a way to energize the request rather than threaten a consequence. So I also think this is a really good example of positive visualization and positive reinforcement. At the end of it, what we're hoping for is that she arrives at the place that we intended, so that our intentions and our cues resulted in her being there. The fact that she may have gone because another horse went, or because other supporting context was there isn't a detraction. It's support that she can realize that, hey, when this herd leader comes out and asks me to go there, even if I don't feel like it at first, we end up doing it and I feel okay about it because I had support. So that can loosen and lighten, and we can get to where she starts going on earlier and earlier and subtler cues. So I gave you a little update there. We have progressed. It has been going well. And we took about a week or week and a half off of doing that specifically with her as the focal point of the session. I think we've moved the herd a couple times in the last week, but we wanted to leave a little room here, give her a little break. And so we'll be back shortly. I'm going to hand it off to the next session and we'll see how it goes. This is Moving the Herd with Roja from Red Horse Center for Collaborative Leadership. Here we go. Welcome to Red Horse Center for Collaborative Leadership. Here's our partner for the day, Roja. So as we mentioned in the introduction, we've been working on sending with Roja as part of our relationship and as part of our language. And we started working with the herd as a way to support our request and to support positive reinforcement and successful moves without moving into force, and sort of demonstrating our leadership skills as a way of earning our role as herd leader. So I want to introduce Jenny, who's a big part of our human herd here at Red Horse Ranch. And Jenny's been working with me on all of this stuff, oftentimes from the other side of the camera. Hello, Jenny.
Good to be here this morning.
So I thought maybe it'd be good to hear from you a little bit about where we are in this arc and what you're sort of open to either contributing or witnessing, what you kind of are thinking of, what's on your mind as you come into today.
Mm-hmm. I think what's on my mind is to be curious about where Roja is today. We have been working with Roja after she came and got comfortable here in her new home. She started to really communicate about what she was comfortable with and what she wasn't comfortable with. She really wants to be with and follow and come towards, but she had a lot to say about her feet, her hind end. She really didn't feel confident with that for a while, with people handling her hind feet. And so we spent a lot of time just taking time building that trust and building that confidence and going at her pace until she really got soft and the trust was in place. And then when we went to sending, we saw the same process repeat that we had seen with her feet. So we've just been, again, going slow, listening really carefully to what she's saying, and gone from a Roja who just would not budge, would not just plant that hind end and wouldn't budge, to a Roja who moves off pretty softly with the support of other horses and her herd when we're asking her. So I'm just curious to see where she is today.
We share a little bit about how our teamwork has shown up in this exercise in terms of your role and your timing and what you're looking for in terms of how you're supporting moving the herd here?
Mm-hmm. So what we developed was in listening to Roja was that where she wasn't comfortable being sent away by herself from the other horses, that if she could start to even take one step and then have other horses accompanying her from behind, that gave her the confidence to move on. And so what my role has been is once you get some communication going with Roja and cueing her to encourage her to send, to move forward, then as soon as that movement starts to happen and engage, then I will ask another horse so that she has more movement with her and then we're getting softer and we're getting more fluid movement.
Thank you. And then we move into sort of what would look like a cattle drive, except we're on foot and it's with horses. So we're trying to basically communicate between either using words or eye contact on whether there's another horse that needs to be gathered or not, whether we need to work through a turn. But we go from that initial point of trying to get unstuck to then sort of steering the herd, and we may hand off horses or one sort of come from the rear. We sort of, that changes as it develops. And we'll just shift right before we get started here with Roja. I'm going to start, I'm going to stay with her as much as possible through this process, because that's the goal, is teaching her that we can ask for this cue and she can do it, and it's a good thing. So I want to have a little bit of reminder that this was cued behavior throughout it. So so in terms of our two roles, I'm paired to Roja.
Right.
Jenny can be a little bit more whichever horse supports the cause. And I can switch if I need to, but me sticking with Roja helps. And then I can ask for help. I can ask for movement from Jenny and the other horses, either because I need help, because we're sort of stuck and I need another progression through the cues and I need more volume. Or I can ask for movement because it's time and she's moving, and now we want to reward with release, and we can lighten pressure by gaining distance and keep the movement going because we now have this community momentum. So this introduction is also served, even though we have some stuff we don't love, which is them using their teeth, that we're managing as best as possible.
I don't want to play that game. Okay, that's enough.
But this introduction is also served as an approach, an engage step, is that we wouldn't want to come in the fence here swinging our ropes and saying go, because we don't want them believing that our presence equals send. We want to collect yeses at approach, can we come into space? Collect yeses at engage, can we have your intention? And these little corrections of teeth is actually helpful to saying, hey, we're paying attention. And even though we're talking to the world right now through the camera, when we turn our attention to them, that's really the next engage. And then the cue for movement is leading. So we're always following that 3-beat pattern of engagement. We're also explain our tool. We explained this a little bit in the Rosetta Stone episode, but we are both using the same tool, which can be clucking, it can be clapping our legs, it can be slapping some rope on our legs to add volume to that, it can be twirling a rope, we can twirl it small or big and then move towards. So we can progress, but we always start with cluck and position. Cluck is movement, position is that away, or this way, but really in sending it's that away. So I'll begin with Roja, and I'll kind of signal to Jenny when I want support. It really depends on how it goes. If she's doing great by herself, I'm gonna extend into the stretch and see how far we can go solo. And I don't want to, with another one of our phrases, is that we're not trying to find out how far I can get with her solo, because that would mean we found out how far we couldn't do it. But when I'm feeling like we're in a good stretch, in a good spot, that's a good time to add support. So with that said, let's get started.
Okay.
So we're going to engage them, which will help lessen the attention towards the photographer. Hi, Ula. So she's very interested in the bag. So I'm going to start just separating him for that, asking for attention, and then a little release, just a relaxation from that. There, now she's with me. I'm going to ask for movement. I'm going to start with the shoulder to get her turned around, which is going to be my intention, my belt buckle, and then I'll move more to the hind and just look for movement once I get her pointed the way I want. A little bit ahead there with my hand, shoulder, hind. We could not get this a week ago. This is really good. Okay, Jenny. Hup. So there you see a little resistance. I'm going to keep at it until we get other horses. I'm staying a safe distance. Ho! Ha! There. Ha! Ha!
Eso, niño.
Here comes support. Ha! There we go. And then the pressure relaxes as they go. I'm going to keep them going while we wait for the others. Well, the point is I don't want to wait for the others. I want to keep movement going as cued, knowing that others will come. Ha! Nice.
Oh.
So they're pausing. Now in general, we're going to want a right turn up here to the paddock. But we haven't asked for that, so they'll go where they go. There goes Maya. So when we get up here and I have my human partner back, we'll just work on directing to where we want next. And this is productive unpredictability. So we are wanting them to be paying attention to what we're asking instead of just going where they know we always go. So in other words, them not just automatically going to the other hay bales is positive because we get to have this second engagement. We have this other paddock that's a nice place to gather because of the hay bales. But again, from the horse point of view, we asked them to move from the area they were in. We asked Roja, she started moving. When she wasn't sure she wanted to leave, she got support. And instead of that resistance and that little return fire she was sending me in terms of attitude, instead of that being a negative thing, we were able to demonstrate that we can work through it via the third way. That she didn't get yelled at, she didn't get threatened, she got asked to move again with increased cues and then increased support, and then she moved. So that is what we want to keep repeating. So Jenny, let's try to go this way around the barn.
Mm-hmm. And we're headed for the mini pasture?
Yeah, we're going to go back to the paddock.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll move Roja and then I'll try to go along the gate side so that we can block the gate.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay.
The other option would be to put you at the gate, but I may need you to move from behind.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So I'll try to stay on her right side if I can.
Okay.
Again, starting with movement, position, visual. She's moving. I got prints already. Oh, she's going the other direction. We can use other horses to our advantage. But here I'm not getting distracted with another horse. I want her to realize that I'm asking her to move. Okay, Jenny, you can start supporting with Sydney here. And here, we're getting movement, we're not necessarily getting the direction. We're going to shift to the left side of the barn.
Okay.
And so that's a progression I'm okay with. If we're getting response and she's yielding to part of our request, we're on the move. Ha, 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 ha.
Okay, wood.
So there she wanted to go with another horse. And I was able to turn her around even though she eventually rejoined, that's a check in the "you moved because I asked" column. Sydney went by, Roja turned around because she was asked to. So we view that as progress. Okay, so let's start together on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you focus on Prince?
Prince, yeah.
She's moving off nicely.
Easy.
She's just also she has a look that she's trying to get out of class. Okay, let's move over here, Jenny. What the fun part of this chess game is that she doesn't know this is class. So by her moving away and feeling successful, that's not a bad thing. She's moving away when we request. So we're acclimating to these cues, this separation not being separation from the herd. Okay, see if you can get around the other side of that small gate and just block Sydney. I'm going to relax there. So if you just stand in front of the gate, I'm going to try to get Sydney through.
Okay, through the little gate?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be our goal here, is to move
Okay.
through this little gate.
Good.
Jericho's here to help.
Jericho.
So we're just going to give her a little forward target. Moving this horse out of the way. Come on, Sydney. There you go.
Go ahead, Jericho.
Now Prince leaving isn't going to help us, but
No. Oh. Okay, she came out, but the
all right. I'm tempted to close that gate
okay.
so we can regroup over here and come through together. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you'll join me up here. So here's where, if you came in with one perspective of I really want to just do this perfectly with precision, first try, this could feel frustrating. To me, I feel like this is where we work out language. This is where we work out relationship, that, teacher students, there's a push-pull to a smart student is going to challenge ideas and try different things. And so this gives an opportunity to have a real conversation versus a predictable routine. So we can keep changing things. As long as we're engaged in playing chess, we can be earning the role of herd leader because we play chess well instead of because we're applying strength and force and pressure. She has resisted and evaded a couple times, or moved away, let's say, unpredictably, might be a cleaner word. But she hasn't shown a lot of stress or anxiety. She's shown engagement and gamesmanship in a way. These are characteristics I like. So we're not trying to thwart them. We're trying to be able to play the game as well as they do. So our goal remains the small gate. Whichever way they go around the hay barn is fine. We'll talk about which way we're going to go. Now they can't skedaddle back to the other pasture.
The other side. Okay.
So let's go back here and move Prince and Roja together.
Okay.
I'll start with Roja again.
Okay.
But in just a couple of steps, we'll add support.
Ask for Prince. Okay.
So we kind of, approach and engage each time. We don't have to, doesn't have to be a slow, their prince is already aware of what's going on. We don't have to stop and be real deliberate. We just need to move through the progression. So here, I've got her attention. We're engaged. Ask for movement. She moves her feet. Now I want to turn her. I'm pointing this shoulder to go away from me. There, nice. I relax when she does. And she's off. So that amount of movement is really successful for us. We couldn't get that in the round pen.
There we go.
Let's go, Juniper. Let's go this way.
Easy.
Good girl. Let's go. So the more we can support the herd, the better. Got to figure out which blonde horse I'm moving.
Good boy. Good boy.
So now we're steering. Now we're playing pool. Because I don't want her to go to the other gate. And me having some precision to the challenge creates a visualization that's positive.
There we go.
I can revise it as necessary, but I'm able to envision where I want her to go. Now we're going. It's the two of us, really. We got minis, but
Easy.
she's listening. Ha! Ha!
Easy.
Ha! Ha! That bench was a convenient obstacle. Here's a corner. Okay,
Easy.
got that round.
Easy. Good.
We're still playing. So now we could get to the paddock through the big gate,
Okay.
but instead I'm reasserting my direction.
Good boy.
And this is excellent. We're getting a lot of movement from cues, a lot of engagement. She's asking, what do they want? And she's realizing that that main question of who's the mover and who's the movee is slowly being answered. Even if she moves around me occasionally, cue for movement.
Good girl.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. So now I lighten up, I release all cues. She knew through visualization and through approach that our goal was to get through that gate. She just moved through it, and it was good. We want that to feel good. And all that other stuff going around the barn and her sneaking around the corner, all that ends up being positive because we got to have a engaging conversation and sort of a peer-to-peer exchange where we are trying to earn a role of leader, but we're trying to be a member of the herd as well, and one that collaborates and asks for movement and rewards the decision to join. And we're also, remember, we're trying to acclimate this horse to the idea that sending is okay, is good. And we're going to stay with it. Let's go, Maya. All right. So we're going to pause, let them embrace this idea of calm and good. And when we feel that's been established, I think what we'll do is we're going to move them back. So we'll let the camera roll. We may or may not pause here. If you want to keep shooting the herd, that's great. I'm going to open this gate. And I'll check in with you, Jenny, in a second. We'll talk about when we want to do that.
Okay.
So another thing we talk about is smooth shifts between work with and be with. And so we want a part of being unpredictable. Another part is being able to be with and have things like our tools with us, the rope with us, but mind our belt buckle. And she's very aware of me right now. So I want to be able to come back and be with and have my cues off, have a lack of pressure, so that she understands that intensity of pressure where I was sending her for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, that wasn't aggression. It wasn't really even, it may have been assertive, but we were engaged and requesting movement. We weren't sending her out of our herd. And if all of those shifts, so many things we've said, indicate an acceptance of, yes, we are in a herd, and yes, you are the leader because you're moving. And so her wanting to belong, her wanting to not be sent is actually an acknowledgement of a desire to be on the same team. We've got to honor that. So these breaks of coming in and being off and being mindful of how I'm pointing my body at her and what our collective energy is, being down and soft. This lets her know there's both hemispheres. Hey, no teeth. And so if I get a feeling like she's collected and she's kind of rested, that's a good time to come back from break, meaning we haven't ended the session, we just took a nice break. And I think this is an okay time. Jenny, what do you think?
Seems like she's quiet and took some breaths. And
Do you want to reflect at all on how that went, or would you prefer to just engage in the second move and then and then end the session?
no, I think the one thing that came through was just staying with them in a calm, grounded way, not adding to, but just staying with them and continuing to clarify the ask.
That's a great point. And we can progress through from subtle to less subtle on our cues without changing the emotion of it.
Right.
We can add volume, we can add support, but staying calm and confident with our energy gives them a magnet to be drawn to that feels better than frustrated or angry, right?
Or
so
confusion.
I feel like if we want them to come to our energy, regulating that and staying calm through it is good. This is a really good time to go. Juniper's going. So I'm gonna ask Roja to join
just
her.
Get out.
Which means I don't want her to go before I ask, but we're in a very good magnet scenario where once I ask, she's gonna go. So I'll ask as subtly as possible with movement and direction. Right now I've closed the door in front of her. I'm gonna open it with position and then cluck for movement.
So I'm gonna let Roja go first, and then you're gonna.
So here, moving the herd is a big, huge magnet.
No. Okay, come on. Easy.
You want to send him?
I was gonna. Yeah. He doesn't need any.
There you go. So in some regards, you could think, well, the herd was moving. That was easy. And when you turn the lens around a couple of times, like that's the point. She still did it on cue, but she had incentive and context that made it easy. And we want to keep winning the numbers game where more and more she says, you know what? He asked me to move. Wasn't that hard. Felt pretty good. I wasn't sent from the herd. We just went to the other pasture. The more we can normalize saying yes is good, the stronger our role becomes, the cleaner our language becomes. And here, I think they're waiting for us. So let's go on
They're
over.
checking on us. And I think a key thing for Roja was to, in this exercise, it allows her to decouple sending with isolation. She's not isolated when she's sent. She's still with leaders and with a herd. And I think that was part of the stuckness in the round pen.
And we're working on normalizing this, where we have these strong magnets available and herd dynamics available prior to going back and asking for this in another setting like the round pen. So we want to get this really strong. We want to move through the storm and get this normalized. And then when we're at a high level performing, we'll be ready to regroup as a herd of 2 in the round pen and try again. And likely we'll have some resistance. But hopefully that's an ear flick and a head ring and a little hop versus really anchoring herself and saying, no, and I'm not saying nicely.
Yeah.
That was where we were, and now we're in an arc towards performing as collaborators. And we widened our team of collaborators, including Jenny, including the other horses. And that is really it.
That's it.
That's moving the herd. It's finding the third way. It's being productively unpredictable.
And for a horse who was by herself for a long, long time, she's learning that we can send her and it all ends well. And she's still with leaders and with her herd.
So I guess we can let's walk up and say hello. We'll have that final approach and sort of release the session for the day. Here comes Jericho. So she's eyes on, ears on right now, pointed towards me.
Yes.
I'm going to work on having my belt buckle at an indirect angle because I don't want to walk right at her.
Right.
Because we've been using that to send her.
Right.
So I want to say approach now instead of go.
Right.
And that's very important. We could think she's running away from us because she's upset or scared. And it could be because she decided to say, when you face me, I go.
Right.
So we've got to be deliberate and precise with our language. So coming up at an indirect angle, showing her my side, not even really making eye contact. This is softness, which is our goal. I'll come into her shoulder instead of her chest.
There.
Take a deep breath. She even moved off there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sort of not send her, but sort of steer a boundary.
Roja.
And just work on this approach.
There we go. Yeah.
So that we can end together.
Yeah. Good girl. Good girl.
Let out some breaths. We want this to feel soft. We want to encourage her to let breaths out.
Good girl.
There we go.
I'm gonna go check in with Prince in the same way.
Thank you, Roja. Thank you.
Ay, niño.
This is Roja. I'm Fred with Jenny and Ula at Red Horse Center for Collaborative Leadership. Thanks for joining us for Horse and Human Collaboration.